Okay.
Mr. Chair, if we're going to be tight on time here, if we can get started and call to order, I'll jump in.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors budget work session here in the conference room. First order of business, Mr. Stanley.
So everybody's got, this is a little agenda that was on your table this morning. I've got a couple things to say before I jump into that. We're going to spend about the first 15 minutes going over some of this work session stuff and talk about the budget in general, and then we've got both SAAA and now Northwestern's here that they missed last week. We'll try to fit them in. So today the board will hear from our individual county department heads and constitutional officers about their needs in the upcoming budget. Rather than the board simply receive a budget that I as county administrator put together and hand to you, we've always felt it's important for you to hear directly from the department heads and constitutional officers what their needs are. I've already met with each department with the exception of the sheriff. I've met with the sheriff, but they had not had their budget together yet, so I've not had the chance to sit down and walk through all his budgets. I have made some adjustments to the request. So you'll see a column with their request for each budget, and you'll see a county administration recommendation. And that will change as we move through the process. Please note that the percentages of increase, we still got to make some tweaks to that, because one of the things we did last year, we did phase one of the compensation study, which cost about $250,000 to $300,000 countywide, and it impacts the individual budgets a little bit differently, but what we want them to do is have the percentage increase after those budgets were inserted, and we're in the process, staff's in the process of trying to go back and do some of that recalculation, and probably before one of our future, we'll be able to revise those sheets. So the ones that may be like 2 or 3% new additional money requests may be flat by the time we're able to put those new salaries into the budget. As we move through the budget process and receive our revenue projections, I'll put together a final recommended balanced budget. I've heard loud and clear the board wants us to hold on taxes, and we'll make whatever adjustments we can with feedback from the board to be able to put that together, and then you all be able to review that and make some other recommendations and changes. Particularly, we need to know what we're getting from the state for the school and the comp board for our compensation, so that's part of the revenue picture. It's a 60-day cycle for the General Assembly this year. We're halfway through that. Here in the next few weeks, we'll get a little bit firmer as far as the exact dollars.
Now, how close are they going to know right now? I mean, we're in the middle of all of this.
There are 30 days left. In about 2 or 3 weeks, the governor's budget shouldn't be too far off, but we should know there's a couple bills out there talk about salary increases for sheriff's deputies, adding deputy positions, the school numbers. There's a few things that'll change over the next few weeks, but when we get to that, probably like the March 3rd or so work session, we'll have some additional information, certainly by the 10th of March.
Okay.
Since the recession hit in 2019, most of the budgets you'll see today have been relatively flat. Connie's put together the last 5 years on a little graph to show you what their budgets look like. Most of the new costs are really from the October comp study increases I mentioned, and we've asked each department to put in a 10% health insurance estimate. We hope that's high, and we can be able to pull that back, but we won't know until we get our health insurance estimate.
It's a 10% increase over last year?
Yes.
Okay.
The Lions,
When will we start getting those things?
probably in the next 45 days or so.
Why do they wait so late? And, I mean, they know everybody's.
And
working on
every
budget.
county's in the same boat.
Yeah,
We
they
talked
are.
about the regional jail, we're waiting on those numbers.
Yeah.
So. In March, we'll have them before we put together the final budget. That's close as we can get.
Okay.
The lion's share of our budgets are personnel costs. Most of what could be cut outside of personnel has been trimmed pretty good the last few years. If you remember, at the very end of the budget process, the approval motion asked that each department go back and trim 1.2%. So again, that was, trimming any line where it wasn't personnel costs for the most part. As outlined in Table 16 of the county audit, between 2009 and 2018, the county workforce is grew by 13 full-time employees, or about 5.48%, while the county population has grown by about 6.3%. Of the 13 new full-time positions, 15 of those represent about 15 new positions in the fire department. That's where, if somebody asks, where have we added staff, fire and rescue? 15 new positions since 2009. The school, over that period, the school system has lost 17 positions. And again, that's in your audit every year. There's a table 16, that talks about all those positions. You'll be getting a memo from me. Connie was pulling together some data for me yesterday. The 2018 state comparable report. That looks at the FY18 audits of every jurisdiction in Virginia. For us, we drill down, look at our neighboring jurisdictions: Clark, Fauquier, Frederick, Page, Rappahannock, Shenandoah. Let's do a little comparison. Warren's fourth out of the 7 jurisdictions in spending at $3,094.77 per capita. Again, I will send you a separate memo that shows that. We're 7th out of 7 education spending at $1478.32 per capita. We're 7th out of 7 in law enforcement spending at $124.78, and 5th out of 7 in fire and rescue at $113.15. And based on the tax rates of our neighbors, Warren County, we're at the 3rd lowest tax rate at 65.5 cents. We've slotted 10 minutes with each department head and constitutional officer today. Doesn't leave a whole lot of time for questions. As in the past, I would say email Connie or I. We'll put a summarized list of questions. We'll go out and get answers. But you also may want to talk to department heads on your end. That's your prerogative. But the ones that you give us and we'll get answers, we'll distribute to everybody. So just know that. So going to this agenda, real quick, 18-19 audit update. We're working with Robinson, Farmer, and Cox. It's probably going to be that first meeting in March for the presentation of the FY19 audit. Again, we'll have to have a disclosure statement like we did last year that we will not have our component unit, the EDA, included, because EDA obviously has not done its FY18 audit, which the auditor just backed out last week. Therefore, they could not do their 19 audit. So that disclosure will have to be in our report, which we'll talk about tonight with the DEQ stuff. It has ripple effects on everything we do, some to more degree than others. Proposed budget goals going in, trying to maintain level of services, staying competitive with staff salaries by implementing hopefully phase 2 of the salary study, maintaining progress on capital improvement projects, although we really haven't added anything. The fire station, there's a couple smaller things, but most of everything. And we've heard the message loud and clear: hold the line on taxes. So message received. Proposed 2021 budget drivers, we've estimated a 10% health insurance increase. Again, we'll know here in the next 30 plus
We
days.
usually do that every year. Budget 10% and then.
If we've talked, sometimes we budgeted higher if they've given us if we've seen that we've had higher claims, significant claims, we budgeted higher. I'd rather budget at 10 and come back at 6 and be able to, and we don't have as much flexibility in late March when we get the budget back. At least if we've got more dollars, then y'all can go and maybe fill some other needs that we have in the various departments at that point in time. VRS increase, there is an increase in retirement system this year. Across the board, 1.15%. Andre is trying to quantify that amount. In the current budget, and unless we address it next year, in the proposed budget, we're using $1.2 million in fund balance. Now, I think schools will have a couple million leftover funds. We'll be able to get some of that back. I'm sure they'll have a request to use some of it for some capital stuff, but we did that to fill their request. 1.2 million is a little less than 3 cents on the tax rate, but we have to always be careful when we use our savings account for operating expenses. So that's something that certainly staff were wary of. The comp study, it's about $300,000 for us and $1 million for the schools. They're getting you'll get the school budget 5:30 next Tuesday. They're getting a significant amount of additional state revenue. I think they're hoping to do phase 2 and phase 3 of the comp study.
Without us having to.
They're asking for some additional, I think $800,000 but there's some other items with that. So we'll have to see at the end of the day what the county can afford to do. But they're hopeful, they're at least gonna be able to do the second phase, if not the third phase, which frankly, I'm glad they're not coming and saying, hey, Doug, we need $2 million to do that. So, because we wouldn't be able to give it to them. Because our
So
situation
the
had changed.
newspaper reported that their budget was gonna be $2 million over last year. So you're saying that we had money built in?
I'm saying they're getting additional state revenue that will cover that.
That will cover the cost.
Most of that.
Okay.
Maybe 800 local, but then the rest of it
Comes from the
match and
state.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that.
It's still our tax dollars, but anyway.
Yeah.
Just distributed amongst the larger population. Okay.
And then we've got our Dominion Water Agreement, which kicks in August of 2020. That requires us to basically offset about half the difference of the in-town rate versus the out-of-town rate. We've got some money set aside in special projects to help us with that, so we won't have to budget the full amount. My guess is $300,000 to $400,000 per year over the next 5 years. It's about $2 million total cost. But with the money we set aside, I've got in the budget about $150,000 next year as far as cost. And that number will go up and down because it's based on our actual water usage, how many days they're running the plant. But I feel good because previous boards have put some money aside that we're not gonna have to jump into it all from day one, and hopefully it'll be less. So staff direction, every department is asked to go back, start from zero, don't just start last year's and try to add to that, but to go back and really provide justification for each of your budget lines. So one of the things you'll see, you'll have their budget sheet, but then at the bottom for each line, they'll hopefully have some language in there that tries to justify why this amount. In some cases, I know some of my own budgets, I've looked at like a 5-year history. What are we spending on telephone? Really try to look at what it takes for the office and the operations. We know, over the years, how many telephones you got a telephone for each person. You go back and look at some of those things as far as the calls and things, but at least try to put some rhyme or reason. And a lot of it with 3 new board members is trying to give you all additional information to hopefully understand a little bit more about each department's budget and how it works. We asked them not to include any across-the-board raises. We asked them for additional requests that we'll prioritize outside the budget. Not every budget you will see today has a 0% increase is what we were shooting for. So we'll have to work on those things. We did tell them positions that were approved and started mid-year will be funded full year in the budget. Additional increase requests, we'll have to prioritize them at the board level, and Connie will kind of make a list on some of that stuff so we can talk about it. The health insurance and salary will come through part of that prioritization. And then comp study would be at the end of the process. If we have $300,000 available at the end of the day without having to raise taxes, then we can try to, I'm hoping, fund the comp study. And that's what I've told department heads, that we don't keep your budget tight, there's no way we're going to be able to afford the second phase of the compensation study because we're not raising taxes. Again, personnel costs, salary increase, no salary proposed, and most of the other jurisdictions you're seeing 2% and 3% increases. New positions, there's one secretary position in the fire and rescue office that was go from part-time to full-time. There's no other new positions, and Connie went through yesterday. There's no positions in the budget. No new bodies.
When can we ask for that? I mean, I would love for us to see a grant writer of some sort.
I'd say that's that prioritization. If you've got extra money, you want to prioritize that over equipment for the sheriff's office, then that's the point we make that
Wasn't
decision.
Brandy hired as grant writer initially?
She was part-time grant writer, then became full-time grant writer. She still writes grants for us, so she'll be working on the fire and rescue. She handles general services, took that buildings, grounds, all that over from.
Well, which one of those is the most important? If Jeff Hayes could pick up some of those and she could take on more grant writing.
Jeff frankly does not have the capability to do, and Jeff worked for Bob. Jeff is more of the
construction project manager.
Yeah, he was the building inspector. He doesn't
Well, I
have
guess I'm not gonna take up time now, but I guess you're gonna have to show me how you go from grant writer to what she's doing now.
part of that was us restructuring. We had a restructuring.
I mean, educational wise, is that what she was trained to do?
She actually has a degree in interior design. That's her background. She handles like the fire station, the colors, the painting, and all that stuff. That's actually was her background. And
Okay,
degree.
we'll figure this out next time. I
Okay.
don't want to take up time now.
So with that, I'm on time at 9:15. We've got our SAAA in Northwestern, so if you're all comfortable, go to your small notebook. And
How much time are you gonna use then? 10 minutes?
Which one's gonna be first? Northwestern?
Northwestern.
Okay.
That's number 3.
Which meeting is it?
Mike, come on in.
Hey, thank you all.
No, I got 3.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, how's everybody doing?
We're doing well. All here sitting down on the right side of the dirt.
It's a nice rainy day. Good time to be inside.
I'm Walt, and our board is here to listen to your proposals and see what we can do to help each other.
It's nice to meet you all, and I understand a lot of you all are new here, so you didn't have an opportunity to hear me speak last year, but I am the Executive Director of Northwestern Community Services. My name is Mike Elwell. I've been with the agency a little over 4 years now. If you don't know, Northwestern is a comprehensive behavioral health center serving children and adults with mental health, substance use, and developmental disabilities. We've been in existence since the early 70s. In 2019, we served a record number of clients, more than any year since the early 70s, around 9,000 clients, which tells you a lot about the scope. We serve 5 counties in the city of Winchester.
How many for this county?
How many people do we serve? A little over 1,500. In Warren County, it's about 18% of our population.
Thank you.
I guess I could start off telling you about some of the services that we offer. Like I said, we offer mental health services, everything from psychiatry to nursing, case management, therapy, to a mental health population of children and adults, their families. We serve older adults that are on Medicare. We accept any level of insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, private pay insurance, and we do not refuse anybody's services. We provide services to indigent folks at the same time, same level of services. What we've been doing over the last year, which has been a difficult transition, our services have been geographically isolated in a sense, and if you had a child who had mental health services, that you were lucky. If you lived in Warren County, you would go to our clinic in Warren County on Kreiser Street. But that has changed over the last year. Now we are seeing adults and children in all of our localities, which has been obviously a big change. So now if you're an adult, you can get services here in Warren County. We see adults in our clinic on Kreiser Road 2 days a week. We see children over there in families 3 days a week. We have some new psychiatrists that are working over there, and we have implemented a new program that has been mandated by the state called Same Day Access. It's kind of a walk-in clinic where you can call the night before, you can come in certain days of the week regardless of an appointment and see a licensed therapist, and we can set you up for admission, and within 10 days you'll see a psychiatrist, which is a big change because in the past it sometimes took 45, 60 days before you could even get into the door. That is a significant change. It has strained our agency in terms of resources, but it is by far the most beneficial thing that can happen to our clients. We have probably seen in excess of agency-wide 3,000 new clients in the past year. About 500 plus children, and the rest are adults. We've just started the adults in Warren County a couple months ago, and we're seeing on the average of 10 new adult cases a week. And that tells you a lot about the need in our community, that these are new people that have never ever seen services at Northwestern, which is a significant change. And these folks have just been either underserved or kind of part of a lost group. In addition to that, we have moved what's called a psychosocial rehab program. We have 40 from Winchester, here into Warren County. This is a very unique program that keeps people out of long-term treatment, meaning the state hospital system. These are folks that are pretty much in a stable part of their recovery from mental illness that really need some quality of life issues. So we have them in our psychosocial rehab program. They learn all kinds of skills. We actually pick them up every single day from where they live and drive them to our facility. We provide them a lunch, and it's 5 days a week. Lots of activities to do. We have some work programs that they do, so it kind of brings them into more of a quality of life situation. And we have about 46 people in that program today, and it's very similar to the program we have in Newmarket called Sunshine House. The one here in Warren County is called Our Family. And that's a significant program. In addition to that, we have ramped up our services to the jail. We have a grant that serves RSW and Page County Jail, a rural jail diversion grant that we do a transition for inmates that are being released from incarceration that have mental illness or substance use disorders and connect them to our services, meaning that we hold their hand upon release. We hook them up if necessary with a psychiatrist that we have. So we get an initial assessment. If they need any kind of continuing medication from what they were taking in the jail, and then we bring them into whether it's our mental health treatment or our substance use treatment. And that's been a very successful program.
And you do this with or without insurance?
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We do it with or without insurance.
So you're helping, you're helping anybody that walks in your door?
Absolutely. That is our job. And we, as a nonprofit, we have a state contract, and the state contract pays us about 45% of our budget. The rest of the dollars either come from our localities or from fees, from Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance. There's a significant number of indigent people that come to our doors, and we just we apply for benefits if they're eligible for Medicaid. We apply for those benefits. Sometimes it takes 6 to 8 months to get those benefits, but we apply for those. Sometimes they don't get it. It doesn't really matter. We have a philosophy that we will deal with anybody who comes to our door and provide them the same level of treatment that anybody gets.
Even the VA folks?
Yes, we have a special agreement with a managed care company that if we treat a veteran, we can bill that managed care as opposed to them going to the VA.
I mean, for those here, it's 55 miles away.
Yes, and that's a big issue. And so access to services are a really big issue. There are a couple services in our catchment area that are significantly impact our ability to provide treatment. One of those is detox. There is not an inpatient detox facility in our region. We have to send folks to Culpeper into a program that's called Boxwood. And we have, as you probably understand, we have a lot of people who are involved in substance use, and one of the first stages is to get them off that opiate and to get them kind of clean to a point where we can provide treatment. Detox is the first step in that. A lot of folks that end up in the jail end up getting detox within the jail system, which is not the best place to do that. So that's one program that we do not have, and I've been working with Valley Health and the community to try to establish that, but it's a very expensive program. In addition to that, which is probably as significant, is that we do not have a local crisis stabilization facility for mental health crises. In Virginia, our front door to a crisis system is state hospital. So we have a crisis team that responds 24/7 to anybody who is received an ECO from law enforcement, an emergency custody order. And we do a pre-admission screening on that individual, and it's usually in a hospital emergency room. And then we determine if they meet criteria, and then we search for a bed for them. Sometimes we call 34, 35 hospitals to try to get a bed for them. The hospital of last resort which usually the case is Western State Hospital for adults and Commonwealth for children. So we end up having to have that individual transported by law enforcement, which takes law enforcement away from their regular duties for at least 8 hours to do that transport, which is a significant issue because there's a couple problems with that individual. They have to be treated far from their home in Stanton, and the folks in our communities have limited access to transportation, so families can't go and visit them. And the discharges are abrupt. There's really no coordination and transition. So we need a local crisis stabilization facility. We need a local place to treat people who are in a mental health crisis in our community. It doesn't have to be in Warren County. It has to be somewhere centrally located. It could serve all of our jurisdictions.
Unfortunately, we've only got a certain amount of time and we've got a whole bunch of people to meet.
Sure.
So I really, and I know that my team here is absolutely thanking you for what you're trying to do, and we will try to do our best to help as much as we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted.
SAAA is not here.
No, they were on March 3rd.
All right, they're Marcia, okay. So Sheriff, come on. Sheriff.
So this is Sheriff right here?
You're actually number one in our.
Should be.
Get some additional information, you can pass that
Is
along.
this additional?
You can pass that, yep.
Okay.
There's 3 chairs for you
It's
guys.
all that, she's got it going
Good morning, y'all.
cattywampus.
All right,
Morning,
so
Mr.
I see
Butler.
what you're saying. All right, what do you
Archie's gonna need one.
I got
I don't know, we haven't had a chance to sit down,
We've done
to go through the budget, we'll get a chance, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really
I can't even see her, are you kidding me?
proposed that decrease in the budget.
Trying to sleep.
I'm sorry.
Tony, did you get one?
No, I haven't.
Mr. Butler, I understand we got about 4 minutes for you.
Sounds good. Perfect.
I thought they were cattywampus.
Yeah, I got one of these.
This is what Thank you. Where's that one? Walt already has one.
Thanks, Sheriff Butler. We'll get through as quickly as we can, but we're here to listen to everything that you got and hopefully be able to ask and answer a couple of questions. And we'll just go.
Well, we have literally exhausted every ounce of energy, resource, and minute available for the most part on doing our budget to give you a zero-based budget. We've noticed in the past few years, we've had an average of 3 to 4 recruits in the academy for the sheriff's office, which basically shows us there's a reason for the overage for the past several years for the sheriff's office. Until we can actually do a complete audit of a running budget, what we've pretty much tried to do is, instead of taking one big bite of the apple and eating the whole thing at once, we've realized and come to the fact that we need several things. We believe we can replace those things and fix those things in 3 years, over a 3-year period. And then once we get to that 3-year period, we can actually be a more maintenance and have a more, it's gonna take us probably 2 to 3 years to get an actual zero-based budget that we have it down to a science. Just because we need so many things within the sheriff's office. And as I've mentioned before, our service weapons are really worn and outdated. Our our long rifles, we had M16s from the Vietnam era on the street, which were removed at January 1. We have issues replacing our less lethal, with being tasers and so forth. They're all outdated and they run roughly $1,400 a piece. Then you add the training and so forth. So we've run into a lot of obstacles all the way across the board with that could not be seen until you were actually in office to see. We believe a lot of that could have been from the recent past 4 years of budget cuts. So what we have done is done our best for right now to give you a zero-based budget. And I've moved, if you look at the way our budget's been set up for the last many years, it was set up animal control, school resources, 911, court services, as well as sheriff's office. But I don't believe it was a true and accurate, because we have deputies taking from all over and you're moving and this and that. So to give you a zero-based budget, I moved everything to the sheriff's office budget, broke it down per deputy, left certain things in those groups that they need that relates just to them, like animal control and so forth. But a lot of our vehicles we're using all through the entire agency. One of the things we want to do, and we're structuring to do, is create the same vehicle all across the board. That way, once a vehicle gets high mileage and is maybe not the best for patrol or transport, those are the vehicles we want to move into SRO or something like that. I just think it's a better business model to do it that way. We've gotten with our school, the bus shop, and Aaron and Jerry has really worked well with us to save a couple vehicles. We have about 4 or 5 vehicles that are literally just shot. You asked me about my wants and needs. I need 3 vehicles. We have the money in the budget for it. I want 5. And then we believe once we get to the point in 3 years, we'll be able to rotate 3 at a time every year. And that'll keep us pretty much going.
And that's starting when in the future? I'm sorry. When is that? Your rotation start actually 2 years into the future? Or 3 years?
I think the rotation will start in about 2 to 3 years, to where we can actually get it. But I'm only asking for 3, because I think we can still use the vehicles that we have. Just be wise with our decisions. So if the vehicle is, we believe just because it has high mileage, doesn't mean I'm going to get rid of that vehicle.
I see you've got a line item that says motor vehicle leasing. Is that what their leased vehicles?
Yes, ma'am. We lease them from the county. The county purchases our vehicle, and outright, and then we lease them from the county for 3
Okay,
years.
I did not realize
It's a
that.
great program, Doug. It really is. I commend you on it.
Just
And we procure them through EVA?
state contract, yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things that used to happen is we go a couple years and we have no vehicles, and the sheriff will come in and say, I need 10 vehicles. And I said, this doesn't work. Let's budget for like
One
leasing
year or something.
X number of a year, and we'll have a flat budget amount for the time period, but then you can cycle through on the leases and buy them as you need them. You need to replace them. And from a budget standpoint, we don't have this, and then this over a several year time period.
Has that little program, I'm not saying little, but has that program sort of failed over the last few years? I mean, are
I
you
don't
off
think so.
cycle or?
No, it's been in place for 10 plus,
Yeah.
12 years.
I think it's been good. I personally just believe buying vehicles to just put out of school is a waste of money. When we can spend $3,000 or $4,000 more dollars, and I can have that vehicle for 7 years, opposed to 5 years or 6 years, depending on the mileage. I can resurplus these vehicles, just like the town or the county does with our vehicles. Like we're working with Aaron. We had an admin car that blew ahead. It just wasn't worth keeping us spending the money out of our budget, but it's perfect for the schools to use that vehicle to transport kids. So I would rather give that, transfer it over to the schools, keep it in the county, we're still saving money along the way, and we all work together, and that's what we've been doing with the.
Right, your patrol cars are harder to use than a resource car.
Exactly. So when you get it, especially like Dodge had a lot of issues with the Chargers with the front suspension. And I traveled a lot of the roads in Warren County on the mountains, and don't believe the Dodge Charger is the best vehicle that we could procure for the roads in Warren County. So we're finding that probably the Durango, but here's the other thing what we want to do is we want to have one solid fleet of the same vehicle. That way we get them fixed quicker, we can order parts that they're at a higher volume or whatever, and we can get a better price on parts, better turnaround on time. That's also going to save with hours working on the vehicles. So that's what we're looking at doing is standardizing our fleet. And it's going to take us a while to get there, but we are not just getting rid of a vehicle any longer because it has high mileage. If I can put lipstick on it, we will.
And he says get rid of, a lot of our other departments have former sheriff's
Yeah.
vehicles that rotate, especially the four-wheel drives, Parks and Rec, everybody pretty much uses them. Every year or two, the sheriff will have a sale of surplus equipment, stuff that we can no longer use or stuff that's broken down, not worth fixing. I hate to say it, but about half the stuff usually goes for scrap value.
Yeah.
The others, like the Crown Vics, the local taxi companies love to get a hold of those
Yeah.
types of vehicles. But you can see, usually if the car goes for more than $1,000, that's unusual at the auction. By the time we're done with it.
We have, one of our issues we're having is our ice cream trucks. We call them ice cream trucks. They're the animal control vehicles. It is my strong opinion that I want to phase them out. They are not safe up on some of those switchbacks for our, roads up on Blue Mountain and so forth for people to be driving on them. You'll almost burn the brakes out coming down the hill as heavy as they are. We have found a alternate way to go about it, which will save us in the future. We're probably going to look at going with a smaller Chevy Colorado, which will also save us. They're four-wheel drive, and our animal control officers won't have to raise a 80-pound dog up 8 foot in the air to get it in the truck. So we're looking at different ways of doing that. We will obviously use our vehicles to the fullest, but we're always trying to find a way to supplement wherever we try to purchase through grants or whatever. And that's why I say it's going to take us a little bit to get all the wants we want because we want to research every avenue through grants first. I think if you look at our budget that we have proposed, I believe it was a decrease in...
Overall decrease in percentage-wise, yes.
It was an overall decrease, but we believe by spending frugally, but wisely, and thought out and planned, we will be able to have the equipment that we need, the training we need in the future. And I believe you will see in the next year or two, we are actually staying on point. One of our biggest issues in our agency is training as well as equipment. Our training has gone up. I have asked for an increase of training. Overall, it's like 15,000. But we will also be looking at ways to modify that. If we can get our instructors to go to the instructor classes and so forth, so we can actually hold our own schools. K-9 program, that's expensive any way you look at it. So we're looking at ways to cut that cost, whether it be through grants or whether it be through, like I said, getting an instructor so we can train our own dogs. Looking for dogs I was at the Humane Society just the other day, and possibly we can get dogs through the Humane Society instead of spending $20,000 for a trained dog. So that we're looking at different options and areas that we can actually get the best product and bang for the buck. without putting our officers and deputies in jeopardy or being inefficient. Oh, telephones went up.
I was just looking through and I'm just making an observation.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know you've got a lot of needs. They're not just wants, they're needs.
A lot of them
You
are
know,
needs.
I want you guys to have the equipment you need to be doing your job and to be safe doing
Yes,
your
ma'am.
job. And we're a uniform family at my house, and I saw laundry and $10,000. So that's, you pay for deputies to have their uniforms done? Is that what that's for?
A lot of that comes into, and it was actually a lot more. We actually decreased that by quite a bit across the budget. The laundry is there for alterations. So you have a new officer come in, 4 sets of
Okay,
uniforms.
so it's not dry cleaning.
It's everything. Or you
Because I
get,
was like, let them wash their clothes.
No, I
and
agree
Use
with you.
$10,000 to buy what you need.
well, that's why I decreased it quite a bit, because I believe the
I
same.
wash my kids and my husband's.
I press and wash my own as well for the most part. But we do have alterations that need to be done for new hires, and even some who have gotten older and have expanded.
Oh, I understand that. And my other question is, and I see this not on just yours, on everybody's, so I'm just
No.
trying to get verified. What is unclassified? I see that on everybody's budget.
I asked the same thing,
Yeah, good.
and because I really didn't understand unclassified. So we pulled some of the records, and it could be for a lock that we need all of a sudden for a,
So it's like a discretionary.
it is, or a building to store evidence. Like for instance, we're storing a freezer. So we had to find a place to store the freezer for evidence. So we had to make some movement throughout our parking lot and use some of our trailers or whatever, put it in there, buy a tarp for a vehicle.
Okay, so it's like a discretionary.
Yeah, it is, and
It's a catch-all. I think, anything doesn't fit in a designated category.
It's not huge dollars either.
No, but and I've been seeing it, so I have to figure out, your first one up this morning, I'd ask you.
Ours, we have a lot of different ones, because you may go out to because I asked the same thing about the rental equipment. And then I thought about it, well, you get a crime scene, we don't have enough lights. We need to actually light it up, and because it's a severe crime scene or a search and rescue. There may be certain things that we're gonna need that we don't have those tools, that we need to run, so.
I can't remember the sheriff's budget, we hadn't had it recently, but I know in years past, we find a house that's got 200 dogs mistreated or 200
Right.
cats, and you gotta keep them until it goes to court. Does that come under the sheriff's, or does that come under Maine?
Comes out of Board of Dogs under animal control.
Yeah,
Okay, animal control, so it's still the sheriff's budget. Yeah, okay. I'm just curious.
How about your mechanical systems at the building, are they adequate now? There was some issues.
That'll fall under Brandy's budget.
It
There are
does.
some issues, we are spending some money this spring working on, I think it's the wheel and a couple different components of the HVAC system, but that's under the general services budget.
our biggest part of our budget this year is our communication center. That really is, and that's just something, that's why Major Driscoll's here. He's been working just on that aspect of it, where I was doing the rest, along with Patty. And that's where it's just we have no way around it. And Major Driscoll can explain that.
Yeah, actually, it's a good time to talk about it, sir. The building itself is a beautiful building, but the infrastructure, particularly the communications infrastructure, is as old as the building. Most, if not all of it, is at end of life. Phone systems, the recorder, which is a device that records radio and communications traffic, which we're required by law to keep a certain amount of time and keep that data, not just for court, but for historical purposes, is at end of life and failing. The 911 equipment, our call handling equipment, is not compatible to the next generation 911 systems, which are actually rolling out as we speak in certain counties. Text to talk, for example, with the advent of phones, people who cannot speak or unable to speak are using their phones. We have to be compliant with that by July. So unfortunately, all of this infrastructure has been looming there for a while. We did a complete inventory and audit of our equipment to see where we're at And some of the stuff can be phased in. We're looking at phasing in over the next 3 years where we can. But unfortunately, the time-sensitive stuff, like you'll see if I can bring your attention to a couple of things, I'll probably jump out at you. If you look at the 911 section, and you go to just below personnel, and you'll see increases. There's increases with maintenance contract. Those were, I hate to call it the cost of doing business, but unfortunately, the vendors that we deal with, like Southern Software Maintenance,
That sheet right there.
all those increases are subtle increases. The big pieces that you'll see, if you go to the second page, under operating expenses, you'll look at furniture, fixtures, for example. Those are 24/7 chairs. Those are chairs designed to have people sit in them all day long, every single day. Ones we have are broken, which contribute to issues with the personnel. The big stuff, if you look under computer equipment, for example, you'll see this Vertiv replace battery backup. There are battery backups which are in some of these rooms which were at risk due to the HVAC. Some of these things need to be replaced because they're out of warranty. They can't be serviced, so they have to be replaced. What we're going to do, this is why I wanted to point this to your attention so everybody didn't go, oh, that's a lot of money. Here's the good news. If you look down here and it says $172,500, we're getting $150,000 of that back by a grant. We have to apply, we have to do the 3 bids. We've already taken a look at Century Square, so the quote we have is at $172,500. We're in the process of meeting with CenturyLink and Motorola to have a sit-down actual presentation, as well as doing due diligence and going to other centers who have used their equipment to see, does it work? Will it work for us? Is it the right choice? So once we take a look at all 3 of those within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a real good sound idea of which one to put forth to the board. Again, reminding you that $150,000 is we're going to get back to a grant with the state. So that's what a lot of that will come back to us. But we just have to put it forth, apply, pay for at least the front end to get it back. So it's just the timing of it. It's this capital expense is during this budget rolls over into the next one. The good news is once we get into the next budget, you won't see this type of stuff. We'll be caught up because we've already planned for and anticipated those costs for the next budget. So we're trying to phase those things in. So that kind of give you an answer about the infrastructure. Things that we can get along or limp along with that we don't need to replace, like our existing phone system. Although it's not the future, it's good enough. So when you call us, it works just fine. So we'll replace what we need to do by law and to sustain that lifeline for the 911 center. So all these infrastructure improvements are absolutely necessary. It's the most important expenses we have in our building.
You'll hear us talk about phone systems, like the phone system in this building, this year will hit 20 years old. And we've got money, and the board has been setting aside funds. We've got the money we think to replace it, working with the school board on the IT. Their system's at 8, so theirs is out of date. You know, ours is out of date. But
Yeah.
we do have plan. We here in the courthouse are the next 2 to get their phones replaced. And, we are working on those.
Well, I know those things are gonna happen. I'm more concerned about your policemen that are on the street. Are they trained well enough for right now? Maybe they're not trained up as best as you possibly can, but are they trained well enough?
I am 100% happy and with the agency we are putting forward.
Okay, next one is the pistols that you have?
Yes.
You're asking for 30. Is that a total number that you need, or
No,
is
this is
that?
a total of about 70 to 80.
Okay, so we're actually trying to face 30
I'm
times
doing
30
them
times
instead,
30
like I
over the
said,
next 3
yeah.
years.
I think we can do that, and that way we can actually, our patrol guys, like we just did a PO to purchase weapons when we found a deal where we can trade in our old weapons, and our Glocks, our new Glocks are only gonna cost us $140 a piece, opposed to $400.
Oh, yeah.
So we are really looking at every avenue we can. It's like vests. We found that we need 23 vests, and we probably need more bulletproof vests. They roughly cost about $1,000 a piece. So if you were to put that into our budget, that'll eat up any line item you have, just in vests, not to include uniforms. Of course, the uniforms we are wearing, of course, they're outdated. They've been outdated for about 20 years. But we were able to acquire $15,000 worth of uniforms through the 1033 program in Frederick County to reboost and replenish our supplies so we can use that money towards the vests. These are the things that we're doing, And we have just got signed on the 1033 program, which we can actually start looking for it ourselves. We were very fortunate to have a local businessman also donate a box truck for us, so we can use that to go pick up the items we need. So we really are, I'm really happy with what we've turned out and turned to you all, because we have been very diligent, and we have gone to almost to the closest penny we can go to give you that zero budget that you asked for. I think it's gonna take us 3 years to finish eating that apple, and then I think we can be on a normal rotation and be able to maintain our budget. Our biggest funding is, as Doug will also say, is our salaries. That's pretty much the largest chunk of our budget, and we have issues with that. And as soon as we are done with this budget, we are going to work on how we can redirect that, because the career development program has caused quite I'm for it, but we have caused a little influx in the issues within our budget as well, and our staffing. When you have master deputies making as much as a lieutenant, there's things we have to address, and we will. But that'll be in the future.
Again, your guys that are on the street are trained, and are they trained with the Glocks that they have now
They are.
while they're waiting?
They are, and we will be replacing those Glocks
Yeah.
with the same Glocks. So it'll be an easy transition. It'll also, we don't have to replace holsters.
That was gonna be my next question.
Because holsters
Where
are
they fit the
expensive.
same holsters.
Yeah, you figure if a holster's anywhere from $100 to $200, and then, so you're looking at 70 people, that's quite a bit of money. So we want to stay in what we're comfortable with. As you see in the budget, I've asked for 6 long rifles. Well, we need to replace 16 to catch us up to what we have on the street.
Okay.
But we want to do it, like I said, there's no need when I can sit there and take a shotgun and put it out there. I can use different ways and measures to actually keep us going.
Well, we
Now,
want,
the
oh, go
vest.
ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the vest.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone has a vest.
Yes, ma'am.
But they need to be updated.
Correct. They have about a
and-
5-year lifetime expectancy. And what we have is, on an average, for every new hire, it costs about $7,000 to outfit that officer,
Right.
including a vest. And right now, we just did a PO for approximately $18,000 for vests, which we were able to find to PT Armor. They've been using gauze for the last several years. We were able to save about $4,000, which is 4 more vests that we were able to get. Just going through PT Armor, and we can drive to Fairfax and get those.
And they're as good quality.
They are, in my opinion, they're better quality.
Okay.
And they're literally right there, so we are able to get them in a faster time, turnaround, and we're not paying for shipping and handling. We're not paying any of that as well. So it's where we have to account for, but there's different ways to go through what we're doing, and we just have to, instead of just calling out for 3 budgets, we're being more diligent and going for 6 or 7 estimates or proposals instead.
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, I haven't had a chance, Mark, has been working hard on putting the budget together, just got pulled together last week. We will sit down. Previous sheriff, we've got $55,000 for police equipment sitting in special projects. I'll sit down and work with Mark, but hopefully those are things we can take out of next year's budget request, pay with money we've got on hand right now.
Okay.
Go ahead and make those purchases the next month or so, so we can go ahead and get that stuff and roll it out to the officers. Mark, Connie, we put a summary together looking at all your budgets, all 6 of them. Sheriff, E911, school resource, court services, animal control, and medical examiners, that's only $500. Those 6 were showing a $470,000 increase, about 7%. Now, if I count that 150 grand, that's about half, almost, a third of it.
Right.
If I count that as revenue, which we could, we really need to talk, is that grant gonna hit before June 30 or after?
After, probably,
Okay.
is what we anticipate. Also, I'd add too, that we have a 50% match on the vest as well. We have a
So
grant.
those pieces, those are, we're gonna sit down and talk about, how do we get that gap down? So I'll give you a copy, just that summary of that, but hopefully in the next week or two, we'll get a chance to sit down and walk through everything. Like I said, if we've got some other funds that can take care of some of those things, let's do it. It's great to hear about the grant for that. That was the big piece.
Well, then the best, we have a 50/50 grant as well, which will take down that $18,000 grant to a $9,000 bill.
That's great. Sounds like you're digging this for every penny you can dig
We
for.
are
I appreciate that.
digging. Our phones went up, but don't know that they truly went up because the phones were in there, they just weren't itemized under cell phone. So we had to really do some digging to find out where they were itemized at. Our phones went up because we have issues with communications with our deputies in certain areas of the county. As everyone knows who has a cell phone so you can imagine our radios. I was sitting at someone's home the other day, speaking with them in Browntown.
I was gonna say Browntown.
And next thing I know, a deputy's knocking on the door, checking on us to make sure I'm all right. So, in our own building, if you call my cell phone during the day, you're not gonna get me because we have zero coverage inside that building. It's
I noticed
horrible.
that.
It is horrible. You leave the office and there's about 55 messages on your phone every day. So we're looking at trying to render that.
You get a booster.
I was gonna say, you can get a wireless booster.
That's what
Yeah.
we're looking at, and but we just switched over from, I believe, Sprint or Verizon to FirstNet. So we have Lieutenant Brogan who's working on that aspect of.
Verizon's on the tower at the back of your building back there.
I know. So you'd think we'd have great service, but we're working on those issues, and we really, like I said, we don't want to eat the entire apple in 1 year, but we do have some concerning issues with equipment and training. But I asked for a 15,000 increase in training to cover K-9s, TAC school, because we have to also understand that we have a TAC team that has been called out almost 19 or 20 times this year already, where opposed to last year was 6. So our TAC team doesn't have a budget. That's a lot of liability for equipment with people who are using Kevlars and equipment from the Iraqi war. And that's pretty much what that equipment's outdated. My TAC commander asked for quite a bit of money, and I said, well, we're going to have to find other ways to go about it. But a TAC school, I have 4 openings on my TAC school. That's about $12,000 hit right there for training and equipping. So we're finding other ways we can do it if we put our own school on. And we have a great facility to train and teach. I'm sure we can work with Doug and the Board of Supervisors to find certain empty possible buildings that we can use to train and practice. And that's what we're going to do, is find other means necessary. So it's going to take us a little bit more than 41 days to actually get us to the exact budget of fine running budget. I've noticed over the past 5 years, roughly, we've been budgeting for $77,000 in overtime.
Yeah, that's compensation overtime is one of your biggest expenses.
Well, when you have 4 people in an academy on average every year, you can approximately look at $200,000 to $250,000 in overtime. So our goal is to figure out how we can reduce that, and I like the idea of part-time, but the problem you have with part-time is you got to be certified. And the other part is, most certified officers, they want health insurance. So you kick them to 30 hours, but we've been bouncing that around. If you put health insurance on the factor now, and that they have to get so many hours, they're going to work those hours. If they don't have anything but a hired gun, basically, then you're not going to get dependability. So then you're going to end up having to pay overtime anyway. And a lot of times it's going to be to a higher ranking deputy who's getting paid more and it's gonna cost us more in the end. And also then, you know, you can never add in overtime for certain emergencies or call-outs for certain types of cases. So, you know, we really are trying to figure ways to do it. Like our call-outs to drop our budget, we're looking to put a supplemental crime scene unit together. I've talked with Fairfax, they're gonna come put a class on for us for crime scene. That way we can train some of our patrol deputies to actually have that ability to process the smaller crime scenes, so we don't have to call out a detective in the middle of the night. We'll already have them on the street and duly qualified and certified. That's where I say the training needs to bump up, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, Mr. Butler, you've done a great job.
Can I ask one question quick?
Yes, sir, please.
It's great that you got the grant and the whole thing. Do you all do the grants within your department? And have somebody there specifically looking at those? Because usually I think,
They have their own grant position.
okay, that's good. Because usually there's a lot of grants for law enforcement, fire, and parks and rec, so.
That's an excellent question. One of the things that we want to do is, I've managed grants in the past, and we've got a lot of experience in the building itself, that people have managed different types of grants. What we want to do is, you know, we've already talked with the chief mate and our fire partners, where we can get jurisdictional grants that can be shared and leveraged. We'll do that, multi-agency grants. Within our department, we're actually going to, as part of the accreditation piece, look at how we manage grants and put together. You're going to start seeing a quarterly and annual report where you'll actually be able to read about this stuff. Where we're at, what we're applied for, what we've received, how we're applying it, how it's filling these shortfalls on some of the budget things. So those are the areas that we're looking at. So we're really tracking grants in every avenue that we've done well in, and looking for other opportunities, like DMV grants, for
It's a
example.
lot of work to put the grant
It's a
together. It's
lot of
got to be
work.
certain language spelled out there.
Correct.
And then you get the grant, and then the work continues.
It
You gotta
does.
do compliance.
What
make
we tell
sure it's
people
done
is
right.
grants aren't free money.
No.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of due diligence, and we've got people that have done some of the lesser grants, and I've done some of them, and as oversight, it'll come through me. So we'll have checks and balances, and we'll go through finance and through the county on a lot of these pieces. So they'll have a lot of oversight. We won't miss anything. One thing we don't want to miss is opportunity. I don't want to have to come in here and talk to you folks, go, I'm sorry, we missed an opportunity. That's one thing we don't want to do.
And one of the things we did to help that is restructure our command staff. As you saw in the major pass around. Lieutenant Brogan, who's been running courts and civil process. We also had 2 lieutenants running patrol. So we've moved one of the lieutenants from patrol to civil and courts, which we hope will also reduce some of our overtime, because we'll have someone in civil and courts all the time. And we moved Lieutenant Brogan over to 911 and administration, so he can oversee and help manage the grants and look for grants. So we're hoping that will reduce, we've kind of cut a little bit of fat at the top and redistributed, so we believe we'll be more effective in the future.
Looks like to me you've done a lot of positive things, and I know the board appreciates that. So, unless there's anything else from anybody, you're done for today, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all coming in.
Yes.
Street visitors, Christian.